Hello and welcome to Uzreport World News, and my name is Bahram Ghafarov. President of Uzbekistan Shavkat Mirziyoyev, during his address to the parliament on Tuesday, also touched upon reforms in the judicial sphere. Having recalled decisive steps in this direction, he noted the crucial role of judiciary in ensuring justice and the rule of law.
Starting next year, duplicate courts will be abolished. The practice of supervising cases that do not meet the standards of justice will also be cancelled. Another important issue from the new year, 3 categories of regional courts, civil, economic and criminal cases, will be merged into a single court. This innovation is expected to create convenience for the population and entrepreneurs. Another innovation aims at protecting the rights of investors. Investment disputes and competition cases will be handled by a special judicial structure under the Supreme Court. This means that the investor can, at his discretion, directly apply to the Supreme Court to resolve the dispute. The whole judicial system will undergo digitalization, and citizens will be able to submit documents online without visiting the court. Work will continue on the wider implementation of the principle of humanism in the system of execution of punishments. In particular, based on international standards, 25 colony settlements will be gradually reduced. Henceforth, if the punishment imposed on a person sentenced to imprisonment for the first time is replaced by a more lenient one, he will be sent to a probation supervision instead of being sent to a colony settlement. As a result of this relief, 6,000 persons currently serving sentences will be given the chance to live at home with their family under the supervision of the Mahalla. Mirziyoyev also recalled cases that caused serious indignation of citizens and harmed the international reputation of Uzbekistan. He ordered the chambers of the Ali Majlis and the National Center for Human Rights to develop proposals aiming at expanding the powers of the Ombudsman in the field of prevention of torture, as well as to strengthen public control in this direction. The chambers of the Ali Majlis will annually hear the report of the Commissioner for Human Rights on the prevention of torture and determine the necessary measures to completely eliminate this extremely negative phenomenon.
President Mirziyoyev also talked about conditions for the petrochemical, metallurgical, mechanical engineering and other industries. He said these industries can become drivers of the Uzbek economy. To make doing business easier in the coming year, 73 excise taxes will be abolished in such sectors as food, oil and electrical engineering.
Uzbek president has stated ultimate goals of economic reforms. First, from March next year, the minimum consumption expenditures of the population will be announced. More than 1,000 vocational training centers will be opened in the country's mahallas. The government will grant up to 1 million sums to each training center graduate by allocating 100 billion sums from the budget, along with 7 million sums for equipment procurement. It's also envisaged to allocate up to 1 hectare of land to farming families that will be funded from the Employment Promotion and Public Works Funds. Next, the president said it is necessary to accelerate the transformation of state-owned companies in the implementation of structural changes in the economy. Navoiy Mining and Metallurgical Combine, Uzneftegaz, Uzbek Hydroenergo, Uzavtosanoat will be able to enter the international financial market and attract funds without state guarantees. The president admitted it could not be achieved without knowledge and skills of specialists. For that, the World Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the Asian Development Bank and international recognized companies such as McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, Rothschild involved in the reform of the electricity, oil and gas and chemical industries. Large enterprises in machinery and commercial banks will have to assist in these endeavors. We have begun extensive work on the privatization of a number of enterprises with the involvement of international financial and legal advisors for the transparent and efficient sale of state assets, said the president. Next year, Fergana Azot, Coca-Cola Company, Beldersoy and Charvak Resorts, Ichankala and Hayat Regency Hotels, Poytaxt Business Complex, alcohol and oil enterprises will also be put up for sale. In third stage, Shavkat Mirziyoyev stated that it is necessary to create a free, competitive environment in the commodity and financial markets and create equal opportunities for entrepreneurs to purchase raw materials. Currently, there are monopoly markets in such areas as electricity, gas, precious metals, mineral fertilizers, transport services, and many others. In particular, in 2021, the formation of a wholesale electricity market among public and private power plants as well as consumers will begin. From now on, Uztransgaz Transport will only deal with the product transportation that will help scrap the monopoly on natural gas supply and introduce market mechanisms. In order to expand the participation of the private sector in the liquefied gas market, custom duties on its imports will be abolished. The number of manufacturers in the automobile industry will be increased by developing a healthy competitive environment and create a level of playing field for enterprises. 73 excise taxes will be scrapped in sectors such as food, oil and electrical engineering. All public procurement will be under the control of the public and parliament. Number 4. Economic growth will be achieved primarily through the creation of competitive industrial chains and increased investment in such projects. According to research from Harvard University, Uzbekistan has all the opportunities and relative advantages in the production of more than 50 industrial products. In particular, there are all the necessary conditions for the petrochemical, metallurgical, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, pharmaceutical, construction business, textile, leather footwear and other industries related to the green economy to become drivers of our economy. The government will have to prepare the list of promising industrial clusters by April 1st next year and develop a separate program for their accelerated development. In the field of geology, this year 21 mines and promising areas were sold to investors through an open auction. Another 50 mines and promising areas will be sold to local and foreign investors on the basis of open mechanisms.
40 Indian citizens who entered the Bukhara State Medical Institute in the 2020 and 2021 academic year and have been studying online due to the pandemic arrived in Uzbekistan on December 27th on the Delhi-Tashkent flight to finally continue their studies in the offline format.
Currently, 1,514 students study at 11 medical universities and their branches in the country. These students are mainly from the CIS countries, Southeast and West Asia, the UAE, as well as Europe and the USA. About 350 of them are studying at the Bukhara State Medical Institute, named after Abu Ali ibn Sina. It is expected that in the 2021-22 academic year, the number of foreign students will increase to 10,000.
This is a very important moment for us. Last year, we signed a 10-year cooperation agreement with the Bukhara State Medical Institute. After that, the MBBS program became extremely popular with us. After all, this is the only university that has this 5-year program, which is also supported by the government of Uzbekistan.
The Uzbek Republican Commodity Exchange has seen around 1,200 forward contracts worth some $134 million year to date. A forward contract allows fixing the price for the goods delivered in the future and making payments for products at market value in advance. 17 types of products were sold as a forward auction, including sugar, cement, cotton fiber, cotton oil, technical cotton seeds, petroleum products, and animal feed. 87 sellers and 244 buyers participated in electronic trading. The Jizah Auto Car Company is seeking a potential partner to launch the traditional English taxi, Black Cab, in Tashkent. This was announced by Usafter Sanad on Tuesday.
The main taxi car Volkswagen Caddy is widely used in London, Tokyo, Baku, and now it may appear in the Uzbekistan's capital. Black Cab is not just a transportation service consisting of random cars of all stripes and drivers. It's a combination of glorious history, culture and national traditions. In order to maintain the quality and image of the Black Cab taxi service, drivers must meet certain criteria as required of London cabs drivers, like politeness and awareness, full knowledge of the city's parks, squares, temples, stadiums, restaurants, nightclubs and embassies, police stations and train schedule.
The highest New Year tree in 2020 among the countries of Central Asia is the main New Year's tree of Turkmenistan, located in Ashgabat. The height of tree, together with decorating its top star, is 41 meters and the width is 16 meters. In second place is a New Year's tree in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Its height is 36 meters and width 16 meters. And finally, trees in Nur-Sultan, Kazakhstan and Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan are on the third place with a height reaching 25 meters.
A 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck Croatia on Tuesday, killing at least one person, a child, wrecking houses and leaving many wounded. The epicenter was in the town of Petrinja, roughly 30 miles south of the capital Zagreb. It came just one day after a 5.2 magnitude earthquake hit the same area. Tuesday's quake was felt in neighboring Bosnia and Serbia. It even rattled the Slovenian parliament during a session. As a precaution, Slovenia shut down its nearby nuclear power plant, according to local media. Back in Croatia, army troops were sent into the area to help as rescuers try to pull people from the rubble of collapsed buildings. N1 News Channel quoted a Petrinja town official as saying that a 12-year-old child had been killed but gave no details. In Zagreb, people rushed onto streets covered with broken roof tiles and debris. Patients and medical staff were evacuated from a nearby hospital. Croatia's interior minister said the country was expecting help from the European Union as it had activated the bloc's emergency situation mechanism.
I'm going to move heaven and earth to get us going in the right direction.
U.S. President-elect Joe Biden took aim at the Trump administration on Tuesday for moving too slowly in the vaccine rollout, saying it's fallen far behind its intended targets.
A few weeks ago, the Trump administration suggested that 20 million Americans could be vaccinated by the end of December. With only a few days left in December, we've only vaccinated a few million so far. And the pace of the vaccination program is moving now, if it continues to move as it is now. It's going to take years, not months, to vaccinate the American people.
Biden, speaking in Wilmington, Delaware, warned the situation in the U.S. will get worse before it gets better and vowed to spearhead a robust vaccination campaign once sworn into office on January 20th.
The Biden-Harris administration will spare no effort to make sure people get vaccinated. I've laid out 3 challenges in our first 100 days. One of them is ensuring that 100 million shots have been administered by the end of the first 100 days. If Congress provides the funding, we'd be able to meet this incredible goal. It would take ramping up 5 to 6 times the current pace to 1 million shots a day.
Biden says he plans to invoke the Defense Production Act to accelerate vaccine production and called on Congress to release more funds to fight the pandemic. The Biden team has put particular emphasis on the importance of encouraging inoculation in non-white groups especially hard hit by the coronavirus. On Tuesday, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris received the Moderna vaccine at a medical center in predominantly black Southeast Washington.
That was easy. Thank you. There's no cheating. I barely felt it.
Shortly after Biden's remarks, Colorado's governor announced that his state had discovered a case of a highly infectious coronavirus variant first detected in the United Kingdom, the first known case in the U.S.
Boeing's troubled 737 MAX plane carried paying passengers for the first time over the United States on Tuesday, its first commercial flight in nearly 2 years after the jet was grounded in the wake of 2 deadly crashes. Operated by American Airlines, the plane took off from Miami en route to New York's LaGuardia Airport. It's another milestone for Boeing as it tries to move past the deepest crisis in its more than 100-year history. The MAX was grounded globally, including by U.S. federal officials in March 2019, after 2 fatal crashes killed 346 people. Since then, Boeing agreed to software upgrades and new safeguards on a key flight control system linked to both crashes. American Airlines, the third carrier globally to resume flights, plans to gradually reintroduce the plane to its fleet. As for whether Americans will fly on the plane, a Reuters Ipsos opinion poll released this week found that with the passage of time, Americans are less familiar with the 2 fatal 737 MAX crashes. But if made aware of those disasters, more than half say they would probably avoid the aircraft.
California extended a strict stay-at-home order on Tuesday for the majority of its residents
as hospitals in the state said they were on the brink of crisis. Tough restrictions imposed earlier this month on social and economic life in Southern California have been extended indefinitely. Los Angeles County has been particularly hard hit by the virus, with 90% of hospitals there overwhelmed by an influx of patients. Over the past weekend, they've been forced to divert incoming emergency patients to other facilities. California Health and Human Services Secretary Dr. Mark Ghaly said some hospitals have been forced to weigh up the effectiveness of certain treatments for certain patients who are unlikely to survive.
There are emergency room physicians and ICU clinicians and nurses looking at how they stretch themselves effectively to so many different patients. And of course, as I was sort of describing in the rubber band analogy, that if you stretch far enough, certainly the ability to address all of a patient's needs, to address the demands of new patients becomes harder.
While Ghaly said hospitals weren't rationing medical supplies and treatment, he expects conditions to get worse as the surge in infections from the holiday season translate into hospitalizations. Residents are being urged to stay indoors and avoid travel except for grocery shopping, medical appointments and exercise. Restaurants are only able to do takeout and bars have been closed altogether. And what are some of the toughest restrictions in the US?
The arrest in Spain of 3 suspected ringleaders of a multinational arms trafficking ring has not only yielded a massive stockpile of weapons and explosives, but also a warehouse full of Nazi antiques and memorabilia. Authorities announced the bust on Tuesday and say they uncovered 160 weapons, including assault rifles, explosives, and almost 10,000 rounds of ammunition in raids across 3 locations. The Nazi collection, meanwhile, includes portraits of Adolf Hitler, military uniforms, statues, and medals that they say were displayed as if they were in a museum. One of the 3 men arrested is a German said to have connections to far-right groups. The other 2 arrests were a second German as well as a British national. Police say the gun runners would obtain their weapons from Eastern Europe before selling them onwards to narcotics traffickers on Spain's southern coast.
Stocks on Wall Street retreated from record highs Tuesday in a choppy trading session. Stocks fell after Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell blocked an immediate vote of a measure calling for an increase in stimulus checks to $2,000. The Nasdaq fell 0.4%. The Dow and S&P 500 shed 0.5%. Region Atlantic co-head of investments Andy Camperin says investors were looking to lock in profits.
I think it's a combination of profit taking, taking stock of the future, and really appreciating that all the good news that was possible in early 2021, we've actually borrowed it from 2021 and made it happen in December of 2020.
Intel was a leading gainer on the Dow and S&P, jumping nearly 5%. Reuters reported that Dan Loeb's activist hedge fund Third Point is pushing the semiconductor maker to explore strategic alternatives. That could lead to a major shakeup at Intel. Shares of Boeing inched higher. Its 737 MAX plane that had been grounded since March 2019 after 2 fatal crashes resumed passenger flights Tuesday for the first time in the U.S. Snapchat owner Snap snapped a 6-day losing streak, rising 6%. Shares jumped after Goldman Sachs significantly hiked its price target, citing tech innovations and product partnerships that could boost revenue growth.
Small drones will be allowed to fly over people and at night in the U.S., the Federal Aviation Administration said on Monday. This represents a significant step toward their use for widespread commercial deliveries. The FAA said its long-awaited rules for the drones, also known as unmanned aerial vehicles, will address security concerns by requiring, in most cases, remote identification technology to enable their identification from the ground. Previously, small drone flights over people were limited to operations over those who were directly participating in the operation, located under a covered structure or inside a stationary vehicle, unless operators had obtained a waiver from the FAA. For at-night operations, the FAA said drones must be equipped with anti-collision lights. The final rules will allow operations over moving vehicles in some circumstances. The new rules will take effect 60 days after publication in the Federal Register in January.
So far, these were the latest news for today. Goodbye. Take care.